Why didn't you try the installation if they were willing to do that? I guess I understand that. Was there somebody, was that going to be your last resort and you couldn't do any more? Or?
We had done enough research on our own and asking contractors and asking acousticians. We asked 100 people, can this work and is this going to work? And all of our avenues were all dead ends. I think that the insulating of my house to soundproof it for low frequency noise, that was a bunny trail as a delay, wear us down type of an approach. To this day, we've never heard of anyone soundproofing their house against a wind turbine, and it's been 5 more years. And if there was a solution like that, I think it would be advertised as a cool deal by Energy today in the hearings, or last week or the week before. I think they would say, hey, if we have noise problems and all these people are worried about noise and health, no problem, we'll insulate their homes. They've not offered that. They are a black hole of that type of information. I would ask them to provide you that information. They would be the experts if there was such a thing.
I guess my question was, if they've offered it and we're going to pay for it, and you were not obligated with anything else, why didn't you try it?
Well, the process of insulating our home, it would have tore our home apart. Your choice would either to be insulated from the outside, tear off all the siding and decking and everything, even the roof, and insulate it that way, or go on the inside and rip out all the drywall and insulate it from the inside out. That wasn't going to happen. I don't even think the $58,000 would have touched it. You know, my house was 3,900 square foot. It was a big house, and when we saw that estimate from the siding company, we thought it was kind of a joke. We never even entertained it, that we thought that would even come close to taking care of the problem. It fell woefully short.
The people that purchased your house, are they still living there?
No.
What's happened to them? Same thing?
The people that purchased my house, they bought it on September 20th, 2016. They moved in November. They moved out in like April or May at the latest of 2017. They were there for only 4 months. I have not had any discussions with them about why they moved out. The people that bought my house, it was an elderly lady, and she is a leaseholder with Energy. She has at least one wind turbine on her farm ground. I have some feelings of guilt that it didn't work out for them either. We gave them plenty of notice, and we made it perfectly clear that the only reason we're selling our home was because of wind turbines. And I was not going to tell them, no, you can't buy my home. I'd had enough people accuse me of not letting it be sold because we owned it for 3 whole years. I had, I think it was even the attorney for Energy that's here today. I was at a hearing in Princeton, Illinois. He asked me, Mr. Harkey, have you listed it with a realtor? And if you haven't, his follow-up question was, I guess if you haven't listed it with a realtor, you haven't even tried. I have a slide that covers your question too. Let's see if this clicker will let me. Oh, it's going backwards. Bear with me a second. My house is currently listed on Zillow. My former house is currently listed on Zillow. here's the listing. I was supposed to give this presentation like January 9th or something like that. So at the top of my slide it says, here's Harkey's abandoned home is for sale as of January 9th, 2018. It's listed at $274,900. It's been listed by Remax Realty. It has been on the market for 217 days. So there's my house. It's for sale now. I think Invenergy should go buy it. Put this family that doesn't live there, give them some relief. I wish they would have bought it from me. If Invenergy would have bought my house, I would have signed a gag order. I wouldn't even be here. In my county, another wind company came in named Apex. Apex bought 3 houses. And I was so envious of those families that got bought out. I really wanted that, and I wanted to move on. I did not want to travel places to come and talk about this. I would rather have kept all of this private.
Mr. Harkey?
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I just make sure you limit your answer to the question that was posed, okay?
I think he asked me what happened to my house, so.
He asked if the family still lived there.
They do not live there. I'm sorry for elaborating. I felt shortchanged because I had all this information in my presentation, but now we're asking questions about exactly what I would have presented to you.
The other night, someone testified off the internet that you're being subsidized to go around and do this by big oil money and all that. Do you have an answer to that?
Yes. It is unbelievable to many people that I would come here unpaid, unprovoked. I grew up Catholic, and I am of the belief that there are certain things you have to do to earn your way to heaven, and I think that I have to do this so that way the information is out there to help others, even though we took a loss. All of my time is donated. If you want to talk about payment, one time I left a venue like this in Boone County, Illinois. I found a thank you card in my bag. There was a thank you card, and there was a Casey's gift card. I think it was $50. And I held on to that for about a week, and I found somebody that needed that, and I gave it to them. I have never taken any money, any gift card, any benefit, besides if I stayed overnight in a hotel room at a hearing, the hotel room was taken care of, but I felt as though I'd paid enough out of pocket, and I don't want to say I don't need the money, but I quit my job so I could not be reliant on other people, and I don't need the gas money. Some people give a lot of cash to their church or to other fundraisers. I get in my truck and I drive places. That's my way of contributing. I've never taken anything from any oil company. I've never worked for a coal company. I'm not a disgruntled ex-employee. One of the gentlemen that asked questions earlier, and I was not here when he asked, so I'm not sure what the exact question was are you, Harkey is a disgruntled former Invenergy employee or Invenergy worker? Well, that stems from...
Mr. Harkey, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm just going to have to ask you to limit your response again. And I don't
Okay.
think anybody's question your financial responsibility or
Okay.
Your
I
relationship.
guess we can move on.
Okay, but just make sure you answer the question that was asked.
If I get out of control, it's your job to slow me down. So
No, but they do want to hear what you have to say, okay?
Okay.
All right.
I think I answered that gentleman's question.
You did fine, Jeff. Any questions from staff? Would the applicant have questions as witness? Can come forward. You gotta state your name and address again.
Jim Griffin, law firm of Shane Banks, 70 West Madison Street, Suite 5300, Chicago, Illinois, 60602. Mr. Hartke, when you lived in your home, you made many complaints about the noise to Invenergy and to Vermilion County, correct?
Yes,
And you would make these complaints all day and all night, wouldn't you?
yes.
And Invenergy tried to work with you as you testified, correct?
At first, they turned off the wind turbines, and then they refused to do that. And then after our testimony and continuous complaints, because we still had ongoing problems, Invenergy commissioned a noise study at my house. I would say
No,
that's...
they didn't commission a noise study at your house, did they? They didn't go in your house, did they?
Oh, they set up their instruments on the property line.
The question is, did they go in your house?
We did not allow them to go into our house.
They asked to come in your house, but you wouldn't let them, correct?
They wanted to record everything going on inside my house. My wife and I...
So is your answer no? Please, we can't have you just going on the stream of consciousness. Is your answer no, you wouldn't allow them in your house?
We considered it. Ultimately, we decided that it was not in the best interest of the privacy of my wife and kids and myself that we would allow Invenergy to take continuous noise measurements.
Mr. Hartke, your whole testimony is about the privacy of what occurred inside your house. So why didn't you allow Invenergy to come inside your house and take measurements?
I think that the reason why would be perhaps we would be overheard doing the things that husbands and wives do with each other. I think that that was my ultimate privacy between my sexual relations between my wife and I would be recorded. I would put it under the category of surveillance, and that would be the reason why we did not allow Invenergy to have their sound acquisitions who were strangers to us. We did not know who they were. We've been jerked around by Invenergy for months by this time, and if we can't...
I think the question's been answered.
Okay.
So, but you did have a noise consultant perform measurements at your house, correct?
Yes, we did.
Who was that?
That person's name is Richard James. Rick James.
And where's his office at?
Somewhere in Michigan.
Did he come to your house with recording equipment?
Yes.
And how long was he there for?
Rick James was there probably 2 to 3 days. 2 or 3 days.
And he did a noise monitoring study?
Yes, he did.
And have you ever provided the results of that study to Invenergy?
No.
Have you ever provided the results of that study to Vermilion County?
No.
Have you ever provided the results of that study to the Illinois Pollution Control Board?
No.
So you've complained about noise to Invenergy and Vermilion County, and
Yes.
you had tests done by your own consultant in your own home,
Mm-hmm.
and you did not disclose those to any other party, is that correct?
Oh, I think that we have disclosed that, and that information is indeed out there. That several of my neighbors also had noise studies in their homes too.
Have you ever presented a noise study by Mr. James to any of the many zoning boards you've testified before concerning wind energy projects?
I'm not qualified to present noise studies.
So therefore, you're qualified. I'm asking you if you presented the noise study at your house to any of the many zoning boards you've traveled to and testified before.
The answer is no, because I'm not qualified to talk about noise studies. because I'm not an acoustician or acoustical engineer.
Have you ever given Mr. Rick James permission to disclose the results of the noise study taken at your house?
No, we have not given permission to disclose it. When we had,
All right, I want you to take a look.
Sure. For the record, we didn't.
This will be applicant's exhibit number 13.
May I have a copy of that so I can see it too?
Jim, can I get a copy?
Mr. Griffin, I may have missed it. What did you want this to be identified as?
I believe applicant's 13 is the next in order. Is that correct? Mr. Hartke, applicant's exhibit number 14 is a noise level compliance analysis.
Griffin, 13 or 14?
Excuse me, 13. You've seen this document before, correct?
Yes.
And you referred to it in your direct testimony, correct?
Yes, I did.
And that was performed by Mr. Hankard and Mr. Schomer, correct?
Yes.
And Invenergy, why did Invenergy hire Mr. Schomer? Do you know why?
We tried to hire Mr. Schomer, but couldn't because Dr. Schomer at the time of, I think it was in March 2013, he was under contract with Invenergy doing research for Invenergy. So Dr. Schomer declined to work for us.
Did you ask Invenergy to hire Dr. Schomer?
Through my attorney, or we did directly, I don't remember.
So you wanted him involved in the project?
Yes, we requested Dr. Schomer to be involved because he was Invenergy's acoustician, and Dr. Schomer also worked on a project that was the Highland Wind Farm, where Michael Hankard was trying to put in some kind of a noise monitoring system. And that's why we wanted to include Dr. Schomer, because he was from Champaign, Illinois also, and he was close, local.
I think you've answered the question.
Yeah, he was a local guy.
All right, in this report...
Can I ask that Mr. Griffin either...
Hold on just a second. You'll have to come up to the microphone.
I think it's important that I'm sorry, Phil
That's
Luke
all right.
Hans.
Hold on just a moment. You'll have to identify yourself. Or do you represent Mr. Hart?
No.
Okay.
I think it's important, though, that we follow the rules. And if Mr. Griffin believes that Mr. Hartke has gone too far, he moves to strike. You should not be cutting him off. You should have the opportunity to hear the testimony. And that's the proper venue. Not cutting him off and say, we've heard enough from you. If he wants you to stop him, that's the proper course of action.
Noted, Mr. Luca Hans. I do want to let everyone in the audience know that although this is a quasi-judicial hearing, the rules of evidence do not apply strictly to this hearing. So it is up to the chairman and it is up to the board what evidence will be heard. And I do want to indicate to Mr. Griffin and to Mr. Hartke, you have to wait till the question is done. But again, try to answer his question to the best of your ability. Try not to talk over Mr. Hartke. I understand you have a point and a purpose and you're going somewhere, but it's very hard for the court reporter and it's hard for the board to get the gist of the testimony. Everybody understand? Okay.
Thank you.
So we tried to hire Dr. Schomer, and he...
Is there a question pending?
Hang on.
No, he cut me off earlier and I wasn't allowed to finish.
Hang on here now. We're going to play nice, okay? So somebody's going to ask a question, somebody's going to answer, or else we're not going to do that.
That's fine.
You got that? I'm not a lawyer, so that's the way we're going to play it. Let's do it nice.
May I answer the rest of this question about Dr. Schomer and why we didn't hire him? Because it's a goddamn
mess. Let's move on to
mess.
the next question, okay?
Okay, it's a heck of a mess, so.
All right, and Mr. Hartke, this report prepared by Mr. Hankard and Mr. Schomer concluded that the California Ridge Wind Energy Project was in compliance with the Illinois Pollution Control Board regulations, correct?
That's not correct. There's a qualifier. Michael Hankard, I think his exact quote is this. It is uncertain that Invenergy's wind turbines exceeded the maximum noise allowable, the numerical maximum noise allowable by the IPCB. And there are some issues with this report where Hankard did not follow the IPCB protocol. He did not measure the noise at property lines. Oh, and to answer your question earlier, the reason we didn't have a measure at a house is because the IPCB rules says it has to be measured at the property line.
So just question and an answer.
Okay, well, I'm kind of thinking
And
on
we
my
gotta
toes
turn the mic off in between, we're gonna do that. So
I understand.
turn your button off until he asks a question. Then he's gonna ask a question. He's gonna turn his mic off until you're done. Okay?
Thank you.
And you've never filed any complaint in court against Invenergy?
So far, I have not filed any lawsuits against Invenergy.
And you've never filed any complaint about excessive noise with the Illinois Pollution Control Board either?
So far, we have not filed a complaint with IPCB.
And were you aware that if you did file a complaint against Invenergy, Invenergy would have the right to obtain copies of the noise study that Mr. James performed in your home?
We are aware of that possibility.
And you did have a lawyer threaten to sue Invenergy, correct?
We had legal counsel. I can't remember him being threatening. He was a very nice guy. I don't know if he threatened you or if you felt threatened.
Your lawyer stated to Invenergy that litigation was a possibility, correct?
Anything is possible.
How many counties have you traveled to and testified about your complaints with Invenergy?
I've done a similar presentation to probably 5 counties in Illinois, 3 in Indiana, 1 in Michigan, 1 in Tennessee. And that's it, I think.
And is the Cal Ridge project in Vermilion County still operational?
Yes, it's still operational and it's owned by Terraform Power.
And were any administrative citations or violations ever issued to the project based on your complaints?
No citations or violations that I know of.
So what evidence do you have to present to the zoning board about the noise levels in your home besides your own personal testimony?
Well, nobody abandons their home for the fun of it. Nobody decides to move to a double-wide trailer to prove a point. The ultimate reason that we have not filed a lawsuit against Invenergy was because Invenergy being a multi-billion-dollar company, and I have, perhaps a $5 million company, I'm at a severe disadvantage. And I was also trying to use all of my resources to first off get my family into a better living condition, that I could fix my family first while my children were young, where we could escape our home, and that's taken away from all of my other things I'd rather be doing in my life. I guess my way of, the reason I would come here is because I'm really pissed off that my house had been ruined for the intended purpose that it was meant for, is to house my family in a safe environment. You know, we uprooted our kids from our church, our school, all their friends. I'm still grasping of how, since I don't have no other funding except my own business and my wife's work, it's going to take a serious amount of money for me to put up, and it's going to be a very long lawsuit, perhaps 5 years to get through all of that. And so far, my wife and I have been unwilling to give more to file a lawsuit against Invenergy. It's a very, very tough decision. There was days when we decided we'd go ahead and do it, and then we would, have a bill come due or a setback or a project I thought I might get and I never got. So we're between a rock and a hard place, and the only way I can get the most good out of my house is to tell people what happened.
So for how many years have you been traveling to various zoning boards throughout the country and testifying about Invenergy?
Can you repeat the question? How many years? I have not done this solid, so can you repeat the question?
Well, for how many years have you been traveling around the country testifying against Invenergy?
I think my first visit anywhere to testify against Invenergy, where I traveled, was to Sand Lake County, Michigan, and I'm sorry, I don't know how long ago that was. Perhaps 2 or 3 years, probably about 2.5 years ago, was the first time I traveled around the country to testify against Invenergy.
So you've been traveling, when was the first time you testified against Invenergy at a zoning board hearing?
The only time I've testified against Invenergy was in Livingston County, Illinois, at a zoning board hearing. That's the only time I've testified as ZBA against Invenergy.
And have you reviewed any of the application materials for this project?
I've only briefly. I looked through the materials to see how tall the wind turbines were going to be and how far away from a house the turbines would be located, and that spelled out what I expect to happen here.
And how much did you sell your house in Vermilion County for?
My wife and I sold our house and 10.85 acres for $363,000.
And that's substantially more than the average house price in Vermilion County, isn't it?
Yes, my house was the most expensive and the nicest and the largest house in the entire Pilot Township.
So when you say you abandoned your house, you were still able to sell it for $363,000, correct?
Yes.
And the house is for sale again, correct?
Yes.
And but the sale doesn't include much of the acreage that goes with the home, correct?
I think that the current house only includes 2.95 acres.
I noticed in your PowerPoint you had a letter from a Mr. Mulvaney, a school superintendent, is that correct?
Yes, that's my grade school superintendent where my kids went to school.
And the letter that you presented was a letter that Mr. Mulvaney sent to Vermilion County?
Yes.
And is that letter referring, the letter is referring to your children, correct?
My children and one other child that lived in the wind farm.
Yeah. I want to show you what will be marked applicant exhibit number 14. This is correspondence from Mr. Bill Donahue. Do you know who that is?
Yes, Bill Donahue's a state's attorney for the county board in Vermilion County, and he works for the chairman named Michael Marin, a leaseholder in the wind project in Vermilion County.
Right, and in this letter, Mr. Donahue is telling Logan County officials that Vermilion County's never received any reports from a licensed physician or qualified medical person to substantiate any of the points raised in Mr. Mulvaney's letter. Do you see that?
Yes, and do you see where it included Michael Marin as a carbon copy person, and it's from Bill Donahue, who works at the pleasure of Michael Marin, and Michael Marin's family and his parents and Michael himself, they are all leaseholders of the Invenergy Wind Project. To answer your question specific to my children, my wife and I have never agreed to provide the private medical information of our children, that they're still 13 and 11. And they've been the subject of this problem for much of their childhood, and my wife and I are vigorously protecting their private medical information, and we're not willing to share any of that information with outsiders because of our potential for litigation that still is
I got
ongoing.
guy. I think you answered the question. Sorry.
You never provided Vermilion County with any medical information to substantiate claims of adverse health impacts from living near wind turbines, correct?
I think that Vermilion County Board has witnessed me
Mr.
break
Chairman, it's a
down
yes or
and
no
not
question.
even be able to.
We probably better get a yes or no to that. Just a straight answer.
No, I've not been willing to provide all of my medical information to outsiders.
I'll show you applicant exhibit 15. It says enjoying a windfall at the top of that.
Two different articles were passed out. I've got Enjoying the Windfall, I understand that's 15, and then looks like there's another one.
And I'll make that 16.
Which one's 15 and which is 16?
15 says enjoying the windfall at the top, and 16 says turbines boosting government's bank account shares.
Okay, thank you.
So,
That's 16.
So, Mr. Hartke, in applicant's exhibit 15 on the second page, midway down, there's a quote from Mr. Mulvaney. He says, from a school perspective, it's been a huge success. He said, revenues from the turbines have been very beneficial. Do you agree with that?
I'm gonna, can I object at this time? Economic issues are not one of the standards, the 7 standards this board has in front of you. So to ask about those, especially through a letter or an article in the paper, is inappropriate.
Mr. Hartke has a letter from Mr. Mulvaney in his presentation about purported impacts of the project on his school. And that's what, and this is the same thing.
This obviously goes to revenues when you read it, and revenues, as I think the chairman mentioned at the last meeting, are not appropriate for this issue.
But I think he's trying to rebut what's been said. That's all they're trying to do. We don't care about money. But for this particular issue, I mean, they're just talking back and forth and trying to cross-examine each other, basically.
I'd be glad to answer.
So I think it's relevant for what they're doing. Whether we take it into consideration, it doesn't matter.
Can we pull up my slides? Can we ask Daryl to pull up my slides again?
Only if Mr. Griffin asks for it.
Well, we're talking about the Mulvaney letter. It's in my slides.
I understand, only if Mr.
And
Griffin.
he referred to it.
Only if Mr. Griffin asks for it. He's just asking for questions right now. He's crossing, if I understand correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's asking you about an exhibit that he's showing you as of right now.
We have your PowerPoint here too, so.
Okay. Can I have one of my handouts? Can I borrow one of mine?
There you go.
Thank you. Anybody remember what page the Mulvaney letter was? Okay. What was your question, Jim?
Do you agree with Mr. Mulvaney's statement in applicant exhibit number 15 that the Cal Ridge Wind Energy Project, from a school perspective, has been a huge success?
Not a huge success. I disagree with Mulvaney's statement that it was a huge success. I take issue with that.
Right, take a look at applicant's exhibit number 16. This is another article, and about 2/3 of the way down on the first page, there's another quote from Mr. Mulvaney. He says, "They have been a huge boon, and from a financial point of view, they will keep us alive for a minimum of 10 years. So you don't agree with that comment either, is that correct?
From a purely financial point of view, I'm not sure if that's going to keep him alive for 10 years.
Let's go to a yes or no.
not, he uses the word huge again. That's a huge exaggeration to use the word huge. I would never use the word huge.
Right, so Mr. Hartke, just a few more questions. You testified that you have refused to submit or allow anybody to review any medical records for you and your family that would substantiate the claims you've made about the harm these turbines caused. Is that correct?
Can you repeat that question?
Can you read that one
I
back?
think he's already answered that question. You've already asked it, he's already answered it. Let's move on to the next one.
Do you have any information to present to this zoning board from a third party as to the impacts of the Cal Ridge project on your home and your family?
Yes. Can you all turn to page 32 of my presentation? I want you to go to the second last paragraph. This is a letter from Bill Mulvaney, the superintendent of my school. I'm going to read you the sentence that's the most important that I want you all to hear. He says, "The revenue generated by the turbines is a blessing to our schools, but the unintended consequences are real." In the second paragraph, he says, "I have noticed that we have some children in our district that appear to be having some medical issues related to wind turbines. Headaches, lack of sleep, and jaw issues are the most common. Students also complain about not being able to sleep or not getting a full night's sleep due to sound issues." That would be your third-party, independent person who talks about the direct problem that my children were having in my home in McLean County next to Invenergy's wind turbines.
And Mr. Mulvaney knew about those problems because you told him about them, right?
I want you to read this, look at what Mulvaney wrote. He says, "I have noticed," I believe Mr. Mulvaney is an independent person. "I think that you should
Mr.
have,
Mulvaney's not here, so I don't know if you're the
I think you should have him come
hearsay
testify.
testimony on both sides, so.
You should have
Unless
Mulvaney
Mr.
come
Mulvaney
testify."
wants to come and testify, we can't really consider it.
Okay, I understand.
So you have no third-party evidence to establish the noise levels or health impacts to present to the zoning board, correct?
I am unwilling to provide my medical records, my children's medical records, nor my personal, that I paid for, sound study that was inside my home during periods of time.
No further questions for this witness, thank you.
At this time, we're going to take a break, so you get a little chance to retrieve your,
Okay, thank you.
10 minutes. So we'll put a 10-minute timer right there. We got a really nice thing coming up. We didn't have that before, so.